Hello, hello, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to give an additional tool that I feel like is more practical for those people that maybe don't have as much experience accessing their own intuition. I consider myself a really intuitive person after years and years and years of honing it through meditation and through noticing my own thoughts, my own feelings. And my life is better than it's ever been before because I've consistently made a practice of really following what I consider to be signs from my own intuition. And so one thing I'm really passionate about is trying to help people that might not be as well versed in this topic try to tap into their own intuition using slightly more practical methods that are a little bit more accessible to people that haven't been as deeply exposed to the world of spirituality the way I have. So noticing how we're feeling in our body, noticing our visceral sensations is a very, very good way to start accessing what your intuition might be telling you. And there's two different kind of aspects of this topic that I want to cover in this video. Number one is expansion versus contraction. And I got this from one of my favorite people on the internet, Marie Forleo. She did a video on this many, many years ago, and it's always stuck with me. Essentially, sometimes we have trouble telling what's intuition and what's not because intuition and fear can actually be very closely linked to each other. The problem is intuition is something that is worth following, and fear is something that shuts us down. So they're kind of at odds with each other, fundamentally. And something that intuitively we know we want to do might scare the crap out of us. They're kind of combined in that particular case. So one of the age-old questions is, how do we tell the difference between intuition and fear? And I loved the way Marie stated it in her video. She said, even if something scares you, because it's your intuition telling you to go explore a new opportunity that, like I was saying in one of my previous videos, when something's out of your comfort zone, fear is guaranteed to come up. That's just how we're wired. That doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing, it just means it's out of your comfort zone, right? But let's say something is out of your comfort zone, but it is your intuition telling you to go there. You might feel fear, but on a deep level, you'll feel excited and you'll feel expansive. It'll feel like almost your chest is opening. It'll feel like, wow, I can breathe when I think about that. A good example is the people that have left, soul-sucking corporate jobs. It might be scary to leave the, security of a steady paycheck. But underneath that fear of not having that money come in, what you'll often hear people say is, I felt like I could breathe again. I felt like I had so many options open to me. I felt like I was no longer a prisoner. Those are so crucial to start listening to. Like if you feel like you're excited or expansive, even if there's fear involved in your head, in your thoughts, your body almost will be reacting positively to this new possibility. Versus, let's say, it really is your intuition telling you not to do something. And it's not just fear made up in your head, but it's actually your intuition shutting something down. It'll be the opposite of that. You'll feel small and contracted. Now, here's the thing. This is something that takes some practice. It's not something that's super easy to start doing tomorrow if you've never worked with these concepts before. But just remember expansion versus contraction and start noticing. You will notice, like if you're around someone you love, your body starts opening up. If we're on a date with someone we're attracted to, we start leaning in, right? It's almost like we can say whatever we want, but it's almost like our body doesn't lie about these things. So it's worth paying attention to. And then number two, it's a little bit more broad. It's also maybe a little bit more obvious, but when something feels good, that's generally a good sign, right? Maybe it's an activity that brings you a lot of joy. Maybe it's a relationship that really lifts you up. Whatever the outside circumstance is, when you feel good, when you feel joy or any kind of facet of joy, appreciation, excitement, enthusiasm, whatever, that's generally a good sign that you're on the right path. And vice versa, when you feel trapped, scared, angry, depressed, chronically depressed, whatever. And this, doesn't quite include, the mental illness of chronic depression. I'm not necessarily going that far. That definitely is, a medical condition as a result of a hormonal imbalance in your brain. So let's not talk about that for a second. But in terms of just regular feeling states that are more run-of-the-mill every day, something that's negative is generally a sign that we're off track. And the reason we all can relate to this is because we all can relate to the feeling of feeling in the flow of life and feeling like things are effortlessly kind of coming our way and feeling like we're guided. We've all probably had that at some point, versus we've all probably had the feeling of feeling totally frustrated because we feel like we're in a situation where we're pushing a rock uphill and nothing we do is really helping. And we're just getting nowhere, right? One clearly feels good, one clearly feels bad. And therefore, it's not a coincidence that when you feel good, you're in the flow of life and you're being guided almost downstream, versus when you feel terrible and frustrated and stuck, it feels like you're pushing a rock uphill. That's unnatural because you're going against the natural flow of life. And your intuition is almost a sixth sense, if you will, that will help you get back into the flow so your life flows more easily and just naturally there's more ease and more joy and fulfillment in general. And the one caveat to this is you have to ask yourself, well, I'm happy when I'm doing an activity that I know isn't good for me. So insert anything, whether it's over drinking or smoking pot or whatever the case. It's like, well, that makes me happy, so is my intuition telling me to do that? What you really have to tune into is, does it actually make you happy, like deeply happy and joyful on a soul level? Or is it a superficial happiness because you're numbing something that's wrong more deeply? And with certain addictions and behaviors like over drinking, overeating, overspending, drugs, whatever, we're often numbing of a much deeper discomfort. And there's no competition for that numbing and that fleeting superficial happiness to the deep soul level happiness that happens when we actually are aligned with our intuition. The two feelings are different. If we're being honest with ourselves, they're different. So that's a question worth asking yourself if you're kind of getting tripped up on, well, I just totally racked up thousands of dollars of credit card debt at this store, but it was so worth it because I got this, this, and this. Was it though? Or was it that you got a very temporary rush and now you're saddled with all these feelings of guilt on top of the discomfort that you were already feeling and that you were already trying to numb by overspending in the first place? So to wrap up the video, again, paying attention to how we're feeling viscerally in our body and our feeling states in general are priceless when it comes to starting to tune in to the way that we're being guided intuitively. So number one, keep in mind expansion versus contraction and start trying to differentiate between the two in your day-to-day life. And it'll be very subtle in the beginning, so just keep in mind it's going to take some practice. And number two, pay attention to the feeling states that are most often present in different situations. And essentially start noticing what brings you joy and what makes you feel stuck or sad or fearful or frustrated. And start noticing what happens in each of the situations in terms of the actions that you're inspired to take, or the people that you draw into your life, or what doesn't happen because you're stuck in a situation that deep down you know you don't want to be in or you're not supposed to be in. I hope that you got a little bit of value from that. Thank you so much as always for spending a few minutes of your day here with me today, and I will see you again in my next video. Bye.